One of the biggest challenges for brand new instrument pilots is to take all that knowledge that we've been cramming into our heads on our way to the rating and then making it actually useful in a real world application. And in today's video, that's exactly what I want to walk you through. Hey guys, my name is Trent Deersmid and I am a recently minted commercial instrument multi-engine pilot and a certified flight instructor. And in today's video, I want to dive into sharing with you some of the fantastic training that was given to me by one of my instructors who was a very experienced, like 14 years of experience in simulator training for professional IFR pilots. And the way that he helped me to transition that knowledge from being all the theory that you're memorizing to get ready for your certifications and then using it on an actual flight, I found to be just incredibly valuable. And so in this video, I want to walk you through the whole process that I've built and the way that he taught me to do that. Now, if this is one of your very first times watch, or maybe you've never seen one of my videos before and you're like, who is this guy? So very quickly, I decided to become a professional pilot as a career 2.0, and I've been on a very accelerated path. I actually got my private license way back in the 90s, and on 6/20 of this year, I earned an instrument rating. On July 10th, I got a commercial rating. On July 25th, I got my CFI, and on July 28th, I got my multi-engine rating. So I've been going at a really quick clip, and being so incredibly immersed in this training on a full-time basis, I've found to be highly beneficial, and I'm hoping that some of the things that I've learned and have been taught by my instructors over the last while will prove to be very beneficial to you. So with that said, we're going to dive into the process that I've created for planning an IFR flight from point A to point B and all of the steps that you need to take to make that happen successfully. All right, so what you're looking at on your screen is a checklist that I built in Foreflight to help me plan and make sure that I don't forget any of the important processes that are part of planning a flight, an IFR flight from a departure to a destination. So you can see here, step one, departure and destination. So when you've done that, you can tick off that box. Now in my case, this particular flight, we're going from Dillon Hopkins, which is the Keene Airport, and our destination is Hartford Brainerd, which is Kilo Hotel Foxtrot. You can see that route here. And so it's a pretty short hop. It's just 72 nautical miles. We're going to be flying a Diamond DA-40, so that should take us somewhere in the order of 40 minutes. And of course, depending upon the actual route that we pick, that may change a little bit. So now that we know where we're going and what we're flying, let's go back to the checklist. So in selecting a route, there's two ways that you can do it. The very first thing that you'll want to do is you're going to want to see if the FAA has any preferred routes that they want you to fly. And so there is a website, and I'll leave a link to this website in the comments, or rather in the description. So here, you don't have to put the K in, just put your departure airport. In this case is Echo Echo November. And then we are going to be flying into Hotel Foxtrot Delta. And then we can just see. So there is actually a preferred route that the FAA wants us to take. So when we're going back to Foreflight, so if we just look at this route here, we've got EEN, GDM, and then we're looking at T315, HFD. So let's make sure that we keep that in mind when we now go back to Foreflight. And we're going to see so in Foreflight, they have this beautiful thing called routes. And when you pick on that, you're going to be able to see which routes have been approved and how many times they've been approved. So here, direct route, ATC has approved this route 23 times total. And it applies to a turboprop or a piston aircraft and will fly between 4,000 and 6,000 feet. So in this case, I'm going to pick the direct route, even over the FAA preferred route, simply because I see that ATC has approved it so many times. So we're going to go ahead and select that. So now we know that we're going to be at, and I don't really have a pointer that you can see on the screen, but I'm pointing my Apple Pen at the 6,000 foot elevation, and we're just doing a direct flight. I've already packed this flight, and we're going to consume about 8.3 gallons of fuel. So now let's go back to our checklist, and so we can say, well, we've selected our route, but we want to look at the AROCA and make sure that they're, now in this case we're going to have a high degree of confidence because ATC has cleared this 23 times, but let's go back to the AROCA, and you can see here that in this quadrant, and again I wish I could highlight this for you, I'm just pointing with my Apple Pen, but the quadrant where we are doing the entire flight, let's get rid of that, the AROCA is 6,100 feet. So normally I would think to myself, well gosh, then I'm going to need to fly higher than 6,100 feet. And the only reason that I'm not planning for a higher elevation than that on this trip is, again, because I've seen ATC approve this at 4,000 to 6,000 feet. Because again, you can go back and you can look at the routes and it has the elevations 23 times in total. So we're okay with that altitude. And then we're going to select an approach. And I've made a little note here to myself, even though we don't know what's going to happen in the pattern or which approach we're going to use, it is best practice to select an approach so that we account for whatever fuel would be used in the pattern or when we arrive at the destination airport. Let's go back and choose a procedure. I'm going to choose an approach. As it stands today, the best wind is on a visual runway 11, but this is an IFR flight, so we're probably not going to choose a visual. So just for the purposes of fuel planning and also for the purposes of anticipating the potential lost comms, it is a good idea to, when you're filing, put a approach into your flight. So we've got several choices here to choose from. So probably going to be, for now, we're going to just choose thumb. That may change. We actually might get vectors to file or what have you. But by choosing this, like I say, if we have a comms failure, now we don't have to just overfly the airport and then look for an initial approach fix. We can actually fly what we're going to file. So now, we've got an approach, then we would send it to flights. So in this case here, we're just going to do this. So we're going to send that to flights, and that's going to help us with our weather briefing and planning takeoff distances and so forth. So let's go back. And so now we've sent it to flights. Set fuel needed for taxi. This is something that I think maybe a lot of people overlook, but this is accounting for how much fuel. So I typically am going to choose max fuel. You can see here, and again, I don't have a highlighter to highlight this for you, but I'm not sure if I can draw on it or not. There we go. So the taxi fuel, typically we account for 2 gallons in taxi fuel. Now, if you're at a much busier airport where you're going to be doing a lot of lineup and waiting and so forth, you might want to put a higher number in there. All right, so now let's go back. We've got set taxi fuel. We've already set it to max fuel, so now we're going to do our weight and balance. In this case, we're going to have, let's say, me at 185 pounds. And let's just say that I have one passenger at 200 pounds. And you can see here now, in order to have these, I believe the Foreflight subscription that you need to have to get the performance profiles in is the top one, which is the one that I have. So I'm not sure, depending on your Foreflight subscription, whether you'll be able to do this in the app or not, but nonetheless. So this is, we can see here that at the beginning and the end of our trip, we're going to be well within our envelope, which is great. So weight and balance is done. Now, safety takeoff distances. Do we have enough runway to get off the ground, especially given the temperature on that particular day and whatever the density altitude might be, because that's something that is obviously incredibly important to take into account. So Foreflight actually makes this really, really easy, again, if you have the performance profiles built in. So on takeoff, the FAA recommends a safety distance factor of 1.67. And then you can put in your safety distance factor of 1.67. And so when you do that, you're going to see your ground roll, your total distance to clear a 50-foot obstacle, and so forth for the specific aircraft that you are flying and the specific weather conditions that you're going to be flying. And that's one of the things that I love about Foreflight is it does all of that math for you. So I think we said we were going to be landing on runway 2, at least according. Now that may change when we actually get there. So then you can go ahead and put your safety takeoff or your safety distance factor in. So you can see again the performance for total distance, etc., that you're going to need to make sure that you have enough runway to take off and enough runway to land. All right, so safety takeoff distance factor, safety landing factor, and then packing your flight. That's really just clicking this little button right here. And so we'll actually pause the video while that packs. All right, so Foreflight has finished packing the flight for us. So we can tick that off. And the next thing is we need to choose an alternate. So if we go back to flights and we click on alternate, again, Foreflight is going to give us options for alternates. So the first one is Bradley International. It's a whopping 6 minutes away. It's a towered. It's got a nice long runway. It's got an ILS, a localizer, and an RNAV. To me, that looks good, so we're going to choose that as our alternate. Now we're going to go back to our checklist. So now we need to review the Foreflight weather briefing. So this isn't really, this video I'm not going to, it's not intended to be teaching you how to use the Foreflight weather briefing, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that, other than to say that Foreflight makes it really, really easy to brief the weather on a flight, because you basically just keep on clicking through and you can look at all of the aspects of the flight that are important to you when you're planning it to see if you have a no-go or no-go situation on your hand. So we'll assume that we have now briefed the weather to our satisfaction, and we'll move on to the next thing. All right, so now we have done a detailed review. Obviously in this video we went pretty quick, you would not do that, of the Foreflight weather briefing. Then there's another thing here called the area forecast discussion. So there's a couple of ways you can get to this, and this is a really helpful tool. You can either go to weather.gov and type in a city or zip code, or if you look in the Foreflight in the TAFs tab. So let's go back to flights and let's go back to our briefing and let's go to the TAFs tab. And there should be, around here somewhere, a link to the area forecast discussion. All right, so if you can't find, I've seen it previously in the TAFs tab, but for whatever reason, when I looked today, it wasn't there. So we'll just go back to the aviation, the weather.gov website. You'd punch in your zip code here. In this case, I've already done that, Hartford, Connecticut. And then what you want to do is you want to scroll down until you see this forecast discussion. Again, you can't really see where I'm clicking, but hopefully you'll see kind of where that forecast discussion right there. And then you can go ahead and read this, and it's in kind of plainer English. And so I find it is a really helpful supplement to what is provided in Foreflight. So I would encourage you to check that out so we can say now, okay, we've got our area forecast discussion. And then there's an app called SKU-T-Log Pro. And let me just pause the video here real quick and see if I've got it on my iPad. I've got it on my phone, but I've got no way of showing that to you just now. The phone is filming me. All right, so I added the app to my iPad. We've got our departure airport, our destination airport. We can select time. Let's just say for purposes of discussion, it's 2 hours from now and 3 hours from now. And then we can load the chart. So what this is really good for is just showing you cloud tops. These two lines here are your temperature and your dew point, and when they get close together like that, obviously you have a higher propensity for clouds. But you can see here as you go up, the lines get further apart. And so this is a really cool little tool that somebody showed me just to check in to get an idea of where those tops are. So hopefully you will find that helpful as well. So now let's go back to Foreflight. So we've done that. And then the last thing to do would be to file our flight plan. And then, so I'm not going to obviously do that. The other thing that I spent a lot of time or was taught by my instructor, which I found really, really helpful, is to make sure that you are looking at your obstacle departure procedures for your departure airport, which in this case is Keene. So you can see here for Keene, so basically this is just one of the plates. If you click on the departures, you're going to see your takeoff minimums. And you're going to want to review this because you want to make sure that you really understand, and again, I don't know if I can highlight this or not. Let's see. There we go. Departure procedures. You're going to want to make sure that you really understand what the ODP departure procedures are for your particular airport. Now, ODPs are not assigned by ATC. However, it is a very, very good idea to make sure that you understand what they are and that you actually fly them. So by going to the takeoff minimums, you're going to be able to see what they are. And then for some airports, let's see if I can find an example, you are going to have, oh, here's a good example. So here, if we look at the takeoff minimums, it says close. This is a different airport. But if we look at Leadville, it says right here, runway 16, see if I can zoom in on that for you. Use the Lazul RNAV departure, and then you can look at the Lazul RNAV departure, and you can see exactly what you need to make sure that you do to keep yourself, your aircraft, and your passengers as safe as possible. So I always think that that is a very good thing to do, and my instructor Fabio spent a lot of time when he was setting up my simulator flights. He'd always find kind of trickier airports that had either obstructions like mountains or just other things that made the departure not quite as straightforward as you might otherwise think it should be. All right, so let's wrap this up, and I want to give a caveat first of all. The training that I've not done one of these simulator rides with that instructor in about a month. So most of this is going from my checklist that I showed you and memory. So it's entirely possible that I've forgotten a thing or two because I am obviously a lower time pilot at this point in time. But to summarize the process for you, obviously you're going to choose a departure and a destination. Then you want to make sure that you're going to choose a route that you have the highest probability of being cleared for in Foreflight, along with that government webpage or the FAA webpage. Make that pretty darn easy to do. And then you're going to want to make sure that you're going to choose an altitude that allows you to stay at or above the MEAs on whatever route that you've chosen, and that you pay particular attention to the Arokas in the quadrant you're going to be flying through. When you're looking in Foreflight, something I didn't demonstrate, but I want to just mention it now, is make sure that you overlay the weather on your route and check for lowest freezing levels. Now in the summertime, like we are today, obviously that's probably not going to be a huge issue, especially if you're not going very high, but it could very well be at some other time of the year and on a different flight. I didn't call it out specifically, but obviously in the Foreflight briefing, there is NOTAMs. Make sure you pay attention to the NOTAMs for the airport that you're flying into and the airport that you're flying out of, because as I was doing planning for this video, one of the airports that I was looking at when choosing a destination, it wasn't this one, one of the main one of the main runways was closed. So you don't want to be finding that out at the last minute and think, oh my gosh, what have I done? So make sure you pay close attention to those NOTAMs. Pay very close attention to, as I just described, to your obstacle departure procedures and the takeoff minimums. Make sure that you have a suitable alternate. And at a minimum, especially if you are a lower time pilot or this is a flight that you haven't done before, you may also want to visit the websites for, especially for smaller airports that might have some odd things. Visit the website for each airport and check and see if there is a section for pilots, because if they have any irregularities or stuff that's particularly unique to that airport, they're going to put it on their website. And you may even want to go so far as to call and just speak if there's a flight school there or something, and speak to someone and say, hey, I'm planning a trip, I'm coming into your airport, I've never been there before, maybe it's a really high elevation airport in the mountains or whatever. Is there anything really that I should be paying close attention to as I'm planning my flight? So they're going to have that local knowledge, that local experience, and I, for one, would absolutely want to tap into that. So I'm going to draw this video to a conclusion here. If you are an experienced pilot and would like to add value to the other people who are going to watch this video, if you think that I've done something wrong or I've missed something, please do make a comment and add that value to the community so that other people can see it. If you're going to do that, I'll obviously appreciate it if you're professional and polite about it, because if you're kind of a jerk, I'm going to delete your comment because I have kind of a no jerk policy here on the Fly with Trent channel. If you've enjoyed this video and you would like to see other videos like this one in the future, would love it if you would subscribe. And if you think that this video should be shown to other pilots, you can help me and give me kind of a thank you by clicking that like button and leaving a comment. Even if you don't have much just to say something simple like, hey, I really enjoyed this video, thanks so much for creating it, or what have you, because it's the comments and the feedback that teach the YouTube algorithm to show the video to more people. That helps the channel grow, and obviously if the channel continues to grow, then I'm going to keep on making more videos like this as I go forward in my career as a professional pilot. So thank you so very much for being with me. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I really look forward to hearing your thoughts. Take care. Bye-bye.